Imagine this. The best pasta sauce you have ever tasted sits abandoned on a plate. Wasted sauce. That is a tragedy. If only you had used Barilla al Bronzo pasta. Its bronze-cut texture holds your sauce and scoops up every last drop. The Italians call that scarpetta. Capture sauce the Italian way. Barilla al Bronzo. Click or tap the banner to find out more.
Choice Hotels get you more for your money so you can maximize any road trip. Like with the road trippers we see here in their natural habitat, the breakfast area at a Comfort Inn. Here's a dad teaching his son how to make waffles, fluffy golden waffles. There's a mom making sure her daughter eats some fruit to avoid the "I'm hungry" from the back seat. And a sibling standoff over the last muffin. This is the cycle of vacation maximizationing in all its glory. Check into more. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
You are now entering the Stone Zone, and tonight it appears that the world may be on the brink of war. 1 hour ago, the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad was being evacuated. The Kuwait and Bahrain U.S. embassies also closing soon. U.S. and British ships are being moved out of the Persian Gulf, with U.S. bases in the Middle East now on high alert. U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth says the Iranians are refusing to abandon their development of nuclear weapons. The Washington Post is reporting that Israel will strike Iran tonight. President Donald Trump was asked exactly what's going on. Let's listen to the president minutes ago.
Could you provide an update on Iran? We're hearing reports that U.S. personnel are being moved out of the region within striking distance.
Well, they are being moved out because it could be a dangerous place, and we'll see what happens. But they are being, we've given notice to move out, and we'll see what happens.
Is there anything that can be done to dial the temperature down in the region?
They can't have a nuclear weapon. Very simple. They can't have a nuclear weapon. We're not going to allow that.
It sounds to me like President Trump has figured out that the Iranians have merely been stalling for time, that they are, in fact, unwilling to abandon their development of a nuclear weapon, their enrichment of uranium. The entire world is now watching, and we pray for peace. Only yesterday, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard took some flack for a very powerful video she posted about the evils and the dangers of nuclear war. I, among others, have prayed that this day would not come. But as the president often says, we'll see what happens. In the meantime, a federal judge on Tuesday declined Governor Gavin Newsom's attempt to get a restraining order against President Trump. Newsom on Tuesday requested a court order that would stop President Donald Trump from deploying National Guard troops to downtown Los Angeles. If Governor Newsom had any sense of history, his argument, of course, was that he, as governor, had not requested the National Guard troops. He would know that President Dwight Eisenhower sent federal troops to Little Rock, Arkansas, to support desegregation of the schools, despite the fact that Governor Orville Faubus did not request them. President John F. Kennedy sent federal troops to Alabama to support the desegregation of the schools there, despite the fact that Governor George Wallace did not request them. And the president is within his authority. Democrats in California continue to insist that the protests in California were nonviolent, but anybody who can see knows that is not the case. We have seen burning ICE vehicles, burning cars. We have seen rocks, bottles, chunks of concrete, baggies with feces and urine thrown at law enforcement officers. The violence, I think, is very, very clear. There have been nearly 400 arrests since Saturday. The charges being filed against 5 individuals for assault, vandalism, burglary, conspiracy. We've seen the use of Molotov cocktails. The idea that this is a peaceful protest is now lies in tatters. Meanwhile, thousands of ICE protesters surrounded a federal facility in downtown Los Angeles. About 700 U.S. Marines have also been mobilized in response to the violent Los Angeles riots. This is after the president deputized the 2,000 National Guard troops to help quell the riots. On Monday was when Newsom first announced that he was suing Trump for violating the Constitution. On Tuesday, Newsom told the court that he needed a temporary restraining order by 1 p.m. today, demanding that they be stopped immediately. Late yesterday, Judge Charles Breyer, who actually is the brother of retired Supreme Court Justice Breyer, a Clinton appointee, denied Newsom's request for an immediate restraining order, but set a Thursday hearing. That would be a hearing that took place tomorrow. It will take place tomorrow. On Thursday, on Truth Social this morning, President Trump said the incompetent governor of California was unable to provide protection in a timely manner when our ICE officers, great patriots they are, were attacked by an out-of-control mob of agitators, insurrectionists, troublemakers, and others. If our troops didn't go to Los Angeles, it would be burning to the ground right now, just like so much of their housing burned to the ground in 2020. The great people of Los Angeles are very lucky I made the decision to go in and help. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice has charged 2 of the L.A. rioters with throwing Molotov cocktails at officers. 2 rioters were arrested in downtown Los Angeles yesterday. Emiliano Galvez and Rakraki Kuag face federal charges of possession of unregistered destructive device, which carries a maximum sentence of 10 years in federal prison. While the DOJ said that both were residents of Southern California, immigrations and customs agents had detained both as illegal immigrants with prior criminal records. Folks, let's not pretend that this is some indigenous uprising, that this is going to be limited to Los Angeles. Radical leftist organizations have been predicting this from the beginning. First of all, you have the usual suspects, Norm Eisen, Mary McCord, Andrew Weissman, those who orchestrated the Russian collusion hoax, those who orchestrated the Ukrainian impeachment hoax, those who now have moved to direct violence in an effort to topple President Donald Trump. As we saw in 2020 in the Antifa BLM riots, this is a well-financed, a well-orchestrated national campaign. And sadly, I predict that you will have an outbreak of violence in other cities this weekend. The so-called No Kings protests, which have been announced, are being orchestrated by extremist groups like the Party for Socialism and Liberation, the Democratic Socialists of America, Indivisible, and the 50501 movement. The groups claim to be organizing over 1,800 demonstrations in all 50 states in order to disrupt law and order, vilify President Trump, and demonize ICE agents for doing their job. Notably, the group will not be holding a protest in D.C., although I believe that there will be an effort to disrupt the parade, which President Trump has planned to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army. That is Saturday night, this coming Saturday night. It is very important to recognize that they have said in their website, this is speaking of the president, defied our courts, deported Americans, disappeared people off the streets, attacked our civil rights, and slashed our service. The corruption has gone too far. No thrones, no crowns, no kings. They have tried to use the courts in a tyrannical way to block the will of the American people. We have deported people who are here illegally, many of whom are dangerous. No people have been disappeared off the streets. People who are not U.S. citizens do not have civil rights. And the only time we have slashed services is so that we could pay for social services for those who are here illegally. The protests are scheduled to take place less than a week after Los Angeles faced this mass anarchy and the ICE raids that began on June 6th. You'll recall that at least 11 police officers have been injured, Waymo taxis torched, ICE vehicles torched, the 101 freeway turned into a war zone with protesters hurling, as I say, concrete and other items. Meanwhile, Walmart heiress Christy Walton is funding these full-page color ads in the New York Times to promote No King's Day, urging a national day of defiance and calling for people to rise up. That's why this morning on Twitter, now known as X, I called on common sense Americans to boycott Walmart. Rich elites funding an insurrection is what this looks to me like, and it is exceedingly dangerous. The president's poll numbers continue to hold up. The idea that his actions are unpopular is a myth pushed by the mainstream media, but I think he is carrying out the mandate of the American people in the last election. Meanwhile, Democrat Congresswoman from New Jersey, LaMonica McIver, was indicted on federal charges by the U.S. Justice Department for her actions outside a U.S. Immigrations and Customs detention facility in May. Alina Habba, a friend of mine, the acting U.S. attorney for the District of New Jersey, wrote in her X post, "Today, a federal grand jury seated in Newark, New Jersey, returned a 3-count indictment charging U.S. Representative LaMonica McIver with forcibly impeding and interfering with federal law enforcement officers. This indictment has a maximum penalty of 8 years for count 1, an additional maximum penalty for 8 years for count 2, and a maximum penalty of 1 year for count 3. As I have stated in the past," this is Alina Habba speaking, "it is my constitutional obligation as the chief federal law enforcement officer from New Jersey to ensure that our federal partners are protected when executing their duties. While people are free to express their views for or against any particular policy, they must not do so in a manner that endangers the lives of others, including those in law enforcement. Today's decision by the grand jury is the next step in a process that my office will pursue to a just end." Listeners of this show will remember that McIver assaulted federal law enforcement officials during a leftist protest outside the ICE detention facility in Newark, New Jersey, just days ago. If you're just tuning in, I'm Roger Stone. This is the Stone Zone, and we'll be right back with more political news of the day. And we're going to cover the results of New Jersey's gubernatorial primary yesterday. So whatever you do, don't touch that dial.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Business. How can you free up your team from time-consuming office tasks? Amazon Business empowers leaders to not only streamline purchasing, but better support their teams so they can focus on strategy and growth. Free up your teams and focus on your future. Learn more about the technology, insights, and support available at amazonbusiness.com.
¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Kann du noch?
If you've heard that sound from Babbel before, I bet you do. Babbel is the science-backed language learning app that actually works. With quick 10-minute lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts, Babbel gets you on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. With over 16 million subscriptions sold and a 20-day money-back guarantee, just start speaking another language with Babbel. Right now, up to 55% off your Babbel subscription at babbel.com/Spotify podcast. Spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify podcast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance.
RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV Insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injuries and additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
And we're back in the Stone Zone. Only minutes ago, the leader of Al-Qaeda, named Saad bin Atef al-Awlaki, called for Muslims living in the United States to carry out jihad and assassinate President Donald Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, Elon Musk, and other U.S. officials. This is what the Al-Qaeda leader said. As a first practical and immediate measure, I call upon every Muslim in the infidel, criminal, and arrogant United States, and it does not matter if they are Arab, American, or other descent. What matters is that they should be Muslims' prophets to Muhammad. There are 4.5 Muslims in America alone. I'm saying to all of them, revenge, revenge. You should have a lot of determination, and the list of your targets should be effective. Go after the scum of the earth and its greatest criminals. This is Trump and his vice president. This is Elon Musk, his advisor and his supporter in terms of finance, administration, and technology. There are his Secretary of State and his Secretary of Defense. Go after them, go after their families, and all those who have ties or are close to the politicians of the White House. We are moving into very dangerous territory here, folks. Here's a very sad story. Brian Wilson, the Beach Boys visionary leader, whose genius for melody, arrangements, and wide-eyed self-expression inspired songs like Good Vibrations and California Girls and other summertime anthems, and made him one of the world's most influential recording artists of all time, has passed away at age 82. He was actually the oldest and last surviving of three musical brothers. Brian Wilson played the bass guitar, although he wrote most of their music. Brother Carl Wilson played lead guitar, and brother Dennis Wilson played the drums. He and his fellow Beach Boys rose in the 1960s from being a local California band to being national hit makers to being international ambassadors for surf and sun. Brian Wilson himself was celebrated for his gifts and also pitied for his very public demons. He is without question one of rock's great romantics, a tormented soul who in his peak years worked to achieve audio perfection. The Beach Boys rank as among the most popular groups of the entire rock era. No one my age is unaffected by them. They had more than 30 singles in the top 40 and worldwide sales of over 100 million records. Their 1966 album, Pet Sounds, was voted number 2 rock album of all time in a 2003 Rolling Stone magazine list of the best 500 albums, losing out, as Wilson had done before, to the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band in the number 1 position. The Beach Boys, who also featured Wilson's cousin Mike Love and childhood friend Al Jardine, were voted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1988, just days after the death of my good friend Rick Derringer, who was another rock legend. This is very, very hard news. Brian Wilson, musical genius, rest in peace. Joining me coming up is Mike Crispy, the host of Mike Crispy Unafraid over at Rumble. And we're going to talk about the results of yesterday's New Jersey gubernatorial primary in both parties and also the big picture on how President Trump is doing. So whatever you do, don't touch that dial. We'll be right back with Mike Crispy.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Oh my God, it's the coolest thing ever. Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? Well, check this out. It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic, famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. They ship Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garten's famous cakes. Seriously. So if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT.
Home means something different to everyone. But with Rocket Mortgage, home can mean even more. It can mean a college education, taming your high-interest debt, even a renovation. We've made it easier than ever to use your home equity. That home you worked so hard for, now it can work hard for you. Call 800-4ROCKET or visit rocket.com to find out more.
Rocket Mortgage, LLC, licensed in all 50 states, and MLSConsumerAccess.org, number 3030.
Welcome back into the Stone Zone. Joining me now is Mike Crispy. Mike Crispy is the host of Mike Crispy Unafraid over at the Rumble Network. Also late night at Real America's Voice. Mike was a delegate to the last Republican National Convention as a supporter of President Donald Trump, and he was asked to open for President Trump at that historic Wildwood, New Jersey rally. He joins us from the Garden State now. Mike, welcome into the zone.
Roger, always an honor. Great to be back with you.
Well, it was on this show only weeks ago that you confidently predicted that Jack Ciattarelli would easily win the Republican gubernatorial nomination in the Garden State. Your prediction has held up almost perfectly. At the same time, Democrats nominated elitist liberal Congresswoman Mikie Sherrill as their nominee. A text message you sent me was exactly right. It points out that absent the lines, which means favorable ballot positioning, I guess the best way to explain this to a neophyte, that favors those organization-backed candidates. But absent that, since the state courts have ruled them to be unconstitutional, both Republican and Democrat primaries in New Jersey are now more open contests with outsider candidates and insurgent candidates having a much better chance, no?
Yeah, for sure, Roger. I mean, what we saw last night was a very fascinating play-by-play when it comes to the counties. Jack Ciattarelli, who won the nomination, he was endorsed by President Trump. And the biggest county in New Jersey is Ocean County for Republican votes. It is the most important place for Republican voters in a primary. Now, Jack Ciattarelli did not have that favorable ballot position because the chairman of the Ocean County GOP, a close ally of Chris Christie, was running a candidate named Bill Spadia, who was getting a very nice consulting fee to run his campaign, also being the chairman of the party. How's that work? But so Bill Spadia had the organizational endorsement, but there was no more ballot rigging going on. There was no more line, so to speak, favorable ballot position. So because of that, Jack Ciattarelli, endorsed by President Trump, the power of President Trump's endorsement, had him win Ocean County by almost 70%. That is huge. I mean, it's been probably 50 years since a candidate who, wasn't endorsed by the county organization has blown out another candidate by that magnitude. And that's precisely because the primary system has now changed. It's now more open and fair. And we saw last night President Trump's candidate easily cruise to victory in an open system against Chris Christie's candidate, Bill Spadia.
It's interesting. Any observations regarding the results on the Democrat side?
Well, it's pretty fascinating because obviously we saw what happened with Ras Baraka. Obviously, he got a lot of notoriety from getting arrested at the ICE facility. And that was, I believe, a stunt to get him more votes. Now, if you look at his number and if you look at Stephen Fulop's number, the mayor, very left-wing mayor of Jersey City, if you add their number together, then they would have beat Mikie Sherrill. So she got, I think, about 35% of the vote. And if you add Baraka and Fulop together, that's over 40. So people were saying that Baraka was in the race as somewhat of a ringer to prevent Fulop from capturing, big city, liberal, progressive mayor, vote. And so because of that, I believe the strategy worked. And Sherrill, who's not even from New Jersey, she talks about having New Jersey toughness and attitude and grit. And it's so silly when she says it because she's from Virginia. She doesn't talk like us in New Jersey or in New York. And she's a total outsider elitist. You hit the nail right on the head. So what happened was the establishment put in multiple candidates on the Democrat side, to basically stifle any momentum from insurgents. And Sherrill just had so much money coming in nationally because she's not even from here, and that carried the day for her in a divided field. The Democrat primary was far more divided than the Republican primary, so totally different races. But Cheryl Ciattarelli is probably what most people would have guessed going into last night, Roger.
And I didn't see the final numbers. How did former State Senate President Steve Sweeney, obviously did not win, was he able to hold South Jersey as a base?
No, I mean, he ended up getting dead last. So he got dead last in the race. He won 2 counties, and those were the 2 southern counties, the one in which he lived and the one directly south to him, not very populous. So Sweeney finished dead last. He finished behind Steve Spiller. Spiller is the NJEA president. That's the teacher union, the very corrupt teacher union. So the fact that, working class, Sweeney fancied himself as like a working class Democrat centrist. Spiller was a radical leftist, pushing DEI and porn in the schools. Spiller killed Sweeney. So that goes to show you the status of the Democrat Party as it stands today. They don't want people like Sweeney. They don't want that union-type voter. They want radicals.
So looking ahead, I think many people may not realize this, but the only 2 states that have their gubernatorial elections in the off year are New Jersey and Virginia. And generally speaking, they will both be read as a measure of how President Trump is doing. Now, Republicans don't have to win both of them. We have a Republican incumbent who's barred from re-election in Virginia. They have nominated, I think, a strong candidate, the lieutenant governor. In New Jersey, the nominee clearly Jack Ciattarelli, and not close, leading the primary. Again, I think with the shrewd endorsement of President Donald Trump, New Jersey was surprisingly close in the presidential election, despite the fact that the Trump campaign could not afford to divert resources to a state that was not a target state, and the initial polling was not nearly as encouraging as the final results were. Mike Crispy and others band together and did their thing for the president independently, raised their own money, spent their own money, and the president did extraordinarily well compared to how he did there 4 years ago. Now, presumably, both national party organizations will be in full support of their nominees. Could New Jersey go red in this upcoming gubernatorial election?
Well, I'll tell you this, Roger. Obviously, President Trump planted the seeds by having such an incredible finish here in 2024. Wildwood, New Jersey rally, you mentioned at the beginning, over 100,000 people attending. I mean, it's unbelievable. And that was a spark plug that has gone on to power the base in this state and get everybody very excited. So that is the momentum that we have right now in New Jersey. And now it's upon Jack Ciattarelli to seize on that momentum, speak to the Trump base in the state, keep them engaged, keep them excited, and have them running through the tape, knowing that we could turn the state red. President Trump got a lot of momentum and excitement just because he's President Trump, and he has, fans no matter where you go. But it was the 6-point finish that I think Ciattarelli, if he stays true to his guns and he keeps embracing President Trump's policies and his platform, and he keeps showing him support, and he keeps talking about things like we're going to be zero tolerance on sanctuary cities, we're going to deport every single illegal and work in conjunction with the Trump administration to do that. I think if he does that, he will keep the enthusiasm from the Trump voter. And just like in all these elections, the base enthusiasm is important. So I think people who are independent, I think they're sick and tired of illegal immigrants coming in. They're in the classrooms in the schools. There's 7 different languages being spoken in one classroom. Nobody likes that, Republican or Democrat. So as long as Ciattarelli stays hard on the immigration message coming from the top, coming from President Trump, I think we can flip this state red. Sherrill's not going to be a pushover, though. Talked about it at the beginning. Super elitist. She was a helicopter pilot for the military. She looks the part. She doesn't really sound the part, but, they can hide her with some smoke and mirrors. But she looks the part. She's got the military resume, and they are going to dump crazy money into this state because they know that it's more in contention than it ever would have been before. Trump put the state in contention. So I think Ciattarelli certainly definitely has a chance. I think that he has as good of a chance as anybody who was in the field. I'm glad that he won the primary. President Trump made the right endorsement, and I hope that President Trump campaigns in New Jersey, and I think that'll help flip it red if it does.
Mike, your reaction to the announcement that Democrat Congresswoman LaMonica McIver was indicted on federal charges for her actions outside the ICE facility in Newark. The mayor of Newark managed to avoid arrest, but as I understand it, McIver actually physically assaulted a law enforcement officer. Your reaction?
My reaction is that just because you are a member of Congress doesn't entitle you to be above the law and become a thug. LaMonica McIver, if you look at the footage, she was physically assaulting members of law enforcement that day at that scrum. Now, I think if you're a member of Congress, you would know the most basic thing is that, you can't, use your office, you can't use your position to get privileges that everyday people don't have. Okay, that's totally illegal. You can't do that. So I'm surprised that she's surprised. She laid hands on these law enforcement officers. Anybody else in New Jersey would have been arrested and charged, the same exact thing on the spot. But LaMonica McIver has Democrat DEI Congresswoman privilege, I guess, because she's on TV on CNN saying this is an intimidation tactic to silence me by the Trump campaign. No, you can't grab and attack law enforcement officers. It actually could have gone much worse if the law enforcement officers didn't show such poise and restraint in that chaotic scene. Hats off to them. But I hope she does time. They need to make an example of it. Democrat politicians are not above the law, so she should face the full extent. And hats off to Alina Habba for doing something about it.
All right, folks, if you're just tuning in, we're talking to Mike Crispi, the host of Mike Crispi Unafraid over at Rumble. And we'll be right back with more of Mike Crispi and political analysis right here in the Stone Zone.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we're back in the zone. We're talking to Mike Crispi, the host of Mike Crispi Unafraid at Rumble. Mike, you also have a show at Real America's Voice. Tell folks where and when they can see Mike Crispi.
Absolutely. So Real America's Voice TV, which you can get on pretty much any TV provider and online on all the streaming platforms. Saturday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. It's called Last Call with Mike Crispi. And we do some analysis on the news of the week. We have a little fun. It's a nighttime format. And we bring on panelists to break down what's going on in the golden age of America as the leftists mount their, I would call it pathetic, response to what Trump is doing. So Roger's been a guest. We have other great guests who've come on, friends of this show, friends of our show. And we're just getting started, Roger. So really appreciate, you having me on to discuss.
It's a great show, folks. Check it out if you can. Mike, I'm interested in your views on what is going down in Los Angeles. Cory Booker, the presidential candidate from New Jersey, a man who, as mayor, got $200,000 in taxpayer money laundered to him through the city water authority called the Watershed Authority, laundered through his law firm and put in his pocket. A story no one in New Jersey media has ever reported. Booker came up with 3 different explanations of why he was pocketing city money, but he did say that even though he was an ex officio member of the Watershed Water Authority board, that he had not voted for the $200,000 payment to his law firm. I dug up the minutes from the meeting. He was not only present, but he voted yes. The executive director of the Watershed Water Authority went to prison for corruption. but Cory Booker put the money in his pocket and has never been required to answer the questions. Anyway, he clearly thinks he's running for president again. I saw him 2 days ago saying that the protests in Los Angeles were peaceful, as if we cannot see with our own eyes what's going on. How do you feel about the way the president is handling this, Mike? And do you agree with me that this will not be an isolated incident, that the hard radical left that is orchestrating the problems in Los Angeles will strike in other cities, perhaps as soon as this weekend?
Well, we're already seeing examples of it. I mean, New York City, I'm seeing footage coming out from last night, even into tonight as the sun goes down here, of these Antifa agitators. They just have a look. They have a sound to them. You know, they're not from here. They don't, have jobs here. They don't contribute to society. They are bust-in agents of chaos to pay to do it. And what they do is they come into a city and they cause violence and they foment chaos. And what they want to do is they want to have these uprisings in every single major city in an attempt, I guess, to intimidate ICE and law enforcement from deporting illegal aliens. I think what this is, a big part of this, is that the left doesn't want to lose numbers in the census. Obviously, there's always been this conversation of do illegals count in the census, and the left are always fighting to keep them in the census. And obviously, they shouldn't be in the census, but they want them in this country for dear life, not only for their cheap labor, but they want to make them inevitably one day citizens. So I think that this is a really deep and dark coordinated act, and it's so unbelievable how people in big cities, and again, whether you're a Democrat or whether you're a Republican, if you work and pay taxes in the city, I feel bad that they get their businesses ransacked, looted, their cars lit on fire, and they just live in anarchy and chaos. So it's unbelievable, but I don't think it's going to stop because this is all they have left. It is a playbook that we've seen year after year. And let me tell you something. Trump's response has been phenomenal. I love that he didn't wait. You know, what happened during the summer of love? These people in all of the left-wing states waited over a week to call in the National Guard, to ask for the National Guard help. By then, the city was achar. It was burnt to the ground. It was laughable at that point. Trump said, not on my watch. And the guy loves the country. So he did the necessary things to maintain the country. Again, these are not areas that voted for President Trump, but he genuinely loves the country and loves the people of this country and doesn't want to see cities burned to the ground. So what he did has been phenomenal. And I've heard from people who were there, who have been in L.A. the last couple of nights covering it, who also were there covering the Floyd protests, that as soon as the National Guard came in, and as quickly as they came in, and the Marines started to show up presence, that there was a dwindling of the level of force, violence, and debauchery that these leftists are engaged in. So obviously it's still happening. They're looting and they're rioting and they're doing disgusting things. But the degree of it has been tampered down significantly because Trump is doing the right thing to nip it in the bud. So Cory Booker, I guess he wants there to be the same things happening in cities like Newark and Camden and Patterson. I mean, could you make it even worse in those cities? I guess Cory Booker is intent on figuring out how to do that. It's such a disgrace, Roger. I think this is going to be a contributing factor to New Jersey turning red. People don't want this in their states and their cities.
Yeah, it's interesting. Even CNN had to admit the other day that the voter attitudes of legal immigrant voters, those are people who came here legally, now overwhelmingly favor President Trump and his hawkish immigration policies. These are foreign-born citizens who moved to support moved right to support Trump's view. In 2020, the Democrats held a 32-point lead among this particular demographic on the same question. Immigrant citizens, immigrant voters, and foreign-born voters have gone tremendously right on this issue. If you go back to 2020, it was 32 points to the Democrats to a 40-point shift towards to Trump and the Republicans. Republicans now lead among these voters by 8 points over Democrats, more so than any other group with that. President's taking strong action is actually being well received by immigrants who are here legally, previously a major base Democrat vote. I'm afraid we have to wrap it up there. I want to thank our guest, Mike Crispy of Mike Crispy Unafraid over at Rumble and Real America's Voice. Tell me the name of your show again, Mike.
Last Call with Mike Crispy. There
you go. Last Call. You can catch that over at Real America's Voice. To our Stone Zoners out there, until tomorrow, God bless you and Godspeed.
Thanks for listening to The Stone Zone with Roger Stone. You can hear The Stone Zone with Roger Stone weeknights at 8 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?